Let's look at some actual examples of sentences and conditions in Latin to just talk about how we would classify these and then translate them. So, walking through the different steps, the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify what the verb is in the main clause. So if we look at the first sentence, si elude toluses, pecuniam tibi didesem. Alright, we have didisem. Said that wrong first time. Didisem. We know this is coming from do. We know it's isem, isas, iset, isemus, isetis, isent is a pluperfect subjunctive. So already we know exactly what it is. Pluperfect subjunctives indicate past, contrary to fact. And once again, having that table handy to see this will really help as you practice learning these. All right, past, contrary to fact. Looking at the table again, we know that we will have would have in our main clause and had verbed in the if clause. That's all we need to translate it. So we will keep it just in the order it is to keep things simple. Si elude toluses, right? Toluses is from pharaoh, ferry, tuli, latus again, to carry, or to bear. So if you had carried that, implied but you didn't, pecuniam tibi dedisem, I would have given money to you. If you had carried, I would have given. So once again, there's a good example of past contrary to fact. All right, let's look at the next sentence. Si elude feres, pecuniam tibi dem. All right, if we're looking at the two verbs here, feres, could be feris or feres, we are not sure if we're looking at a subjunctive or a future. So that verb doesn't help us a lot in identifying this, but if we look at the next verb, dem, that can only come from do, right? Because do is first conjugation, so in the present subjunctive it'll go switch to e. Dem is going to be that present subjunctive. So now once again, look at the chart. Present subjunctives indicate future less vivid. If X should be, then Y would be. So let's go through that then. Once again, we've identified present subjunctives. We know it's going to use should and would, so we can identify it. If you should bear or carry that, I would give money to you. Notice there's two ways to translate these future less vivids. You could say if you should carry that, or if you were to carry that. Both will give us the right sense. And I know that use of should feels a little bit archaic sometimes, so remember you can translate that two ways. If you should carry that, or if you were to carry that, but the main clause stays the same. I would give money to you. Notice, in the main clause, we're going to have that key word would every time we see a subjunctive use. That's how we translate them. It's how we know that they're contrafactual. I would give money to you. I would have given money to you. Of our different uses there. Let's look at that little next sentence. Si elude feres, pecuniam tibi dabo. Alright, the first part of the sentence looks exactly identical to that one above it. But instead of dem, we have dabo. Now dabo is a future indicative. So once again, if we just look at our chart, we see instead of future less vivid, this is future more vivid. And we will just translate the main clause just like we would any future indicative. I will give money to you. Now the conditional clause, si elude feres, because it's a future more vivid, literally we can think of it as if you will carry that, I will give money to you. But often in English we just drop the future sense in that si clause. If you carry that, I will give money to you. So we can just translate this first clause as a simple present tense. All right. Let's go over those first three again before we move on to the next ones. Number one, si elude tulises, pecuniam tibi dedisem. So if you had carried that, I would have given money to you. Si elude feres, pecuniam tibi dem. If you should carry that, I would give money to you. And si elude feres, pecuniam tibi dabo. If you carry that, I will give money to you. Notice the difference between those two. Future less vivid. It's less likely to happen Future more vivid? It will happen if you fulfill the condition. Next sentences. Si servos haberem, liberarem. All right, stop for a minute. Haberem, liberarem. We see that infinitive, habere, liberare, sitting there. So we know these are imperfect subjunctives. Take a moment, look at the chart. Imperfect subjunctives are the markers of present contrafactual. And I know that's confusing. Take a moment to get used to that shift, the fact that present subjunctives indicate future and imperfect subjunctives indicate present. It's just because, once again, the subjunctive doesn't have a future case, so we have to shift things just a little bit here. All right, so present, contrafactual. Liberarem's easy enough. I would free. Implied object here is going to be servos. I would free the slaves. Haberem, present gets a little harder. So present subjunctives use that keyword were. If I were having slaves, I would free them. Or if I were owning slaves right now, but I don't is implied by the contrafactual thing, I would free them. So once again, were having, I would free. Let's look at the next one. Ciceros habuisem, liberavisem. All right. So once again, we see habuisem, liberavisem. We see these lovely pluperfect subjunctives marked by isem, ises, iset, isemus, iset, isent. Pluperfect subjunctives are the markers of. Take a moment, look at the chart, and once again, this is why I would really encourage you to make sure you have that chart in front of you. We're looking at past contrafactual again. Past contrafactual. I would have, liberavisem, I would have freed them, and that marker in the C clause would be if I had slaves. And this is where habeo and had in English gets confusing. If I had slaves, or if I had owned slaves, if we don't want to double up on had there, I would have freed them. If I had owned slaves, if I had possessed slaves, I would have freed them. All right, next one. Ciceros habeam, liberem. Habeam is a good marker there to help us see that present subjunctive, habeo, right? Second conjugation. Liberem, we get the E there, libero, liberere. Liber, liberare, sorry. Wrong vowels coming to mind here, first conjugation. So we know we got present subjunctives. Look at the chart. Present subjunctive marks future less vivid, should or would. If I should have slaves, I would free them. Or, once again, if you don't like using should, if I were to have slaves, I would free them. Final sentence has one thing that's kind of weird. That's why I put it on here. You'll notice Dickey made it the very last sentence in that exercise C of this chapter. And she likes throwing in these word exceptions into those. So I thought we'd just talk about it really quick, get you used to the fact that sometimes this does happen. So first, if we look at the two verbs, refikiset, fuiset, okay, seems pretty simple here. We don't have a big deal going on. They both look like pluperfect subjunctives. So we know it's past contrary to fact. All right. First clause then, past contrary to fact, when you use if he or that guy had rebuilt or repaired the home. That's easy enough. If he had rebuilt, repaired the home. And then we can look at the next part. Bene refecta non fuiset. Now, refecta, fourth principal part, clearly matching domus. Bene, right there with this, plus a form of to be, you're immediately thinking, okay, pluperfect, but a normal pluperfect would not have fuiset, it would have esset. And what I want to point out here is you can just take this as a pluperfect subjunctive because occasionally you will see, instead of esset, fuiset being used, the third principal part to form all of these things. So you'll see fuisem, fuises, fuiset with the fourth principal part to mark pluperfects occasionally. And I'm assuming that's why Dickey put this question here to show you that this does happen, so you better get used to it, right? But just treat it just like if it was esset, and it makes it a lot easier. So fuiset, occasionally you'll replace those. Instead of esem, esses, esset, you'll use fuisem, fuises, fuiset. Civis and livi, salist occasionally. So just get used to the fact that sometimes the verb forms switch around a little bit. So if that guy had repaired or rebuilt the home, it would not have been rebuilt well. Refecta, it referring to the home. The home would not have been rebuilt well. I can clarify that in my translation. So hopefully that's helpful to kind of look through these and see how they function. Once again, it's just a matter of recognizing your different verb forms, which is why we've been doing so many synopses all the time. If you know those verb forms really well and you can identify your subjunctives quickly, then it's just a matter of remembering present subjunctive, future less vivid, should, would. Imperfect subjunctive, present contrary to fact, were, would, and pluperfect subjunctive, past contrary to fact, had, would have. And that's all you need to know. So hopefully this goes pretty well. Let me know if you have any questions.